and I can put this onto Google Classroom and onto YouTube. So we're looking at arrays. What do we know about arrays? Do any of us have any idea of what an array might be? Yes.
It's like this list of different things within the square bracket separated by
You're right when we talk about doing square brackets. Now, I want you to think about an individual variable, all right? So if I needed your name, notice I'm not doing death by PowerPoint today. I want you to actually have a chance to understand it. But if I need your name, I might do this. Name is, you don't need to write this down at this point. Name is Mr. Chambers. Yeah? You should all be able to do at this point, yeah? But what happens if I need another person in my program? I'm going to end up going name 2 equals Harry. Name 3 equals Arjun. Do you see where I'm going with this? Now what that's doing in my program effectively is using more and more and more and more of the memory. But what we can do is we can use something called an array. An array allows us to have multiple items in one structure. All right, it's a data structure. So an array is what we call a data structure. Now, to save us having to just go name 2, name 3, and so on, watch what I can do. I can create an array called names and assign it. Watch what I do here. I use a square bracket, and each item in that array would be given a name. So Mr. Chambers and Harry and Arjun. Now what I'm hoping right now is I haven't lost you, but the point is, have you noticed I've only got one data store being used in my program rather than 3 separate ones? This is actually going to make your program more efficient because I've managed to store multiple items in one variable. Yeah? Yes?
If you want to use the variable,
I'm going to show you how to use it in a minute, alright? So say for example, I wanted to output on the screen Harry. What you've got to be aware of is that each variable that we use has an index in this array. So here's the key thing. The first item starts with 0, the second is 1, and the third is 2. We actually start counting from 0 inside the array. So watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to output names, and what I can do if I want to point to Arjun is I can put 2, and what that would do is it points to that position in my array. So if I wanted Mr. Chambers, what would I write in? What would I write in if I wanted to take Mr. Chambers? Given that names 2 is Arjun, I want Mr. Chambers. Yes? Output names 0. Right. Here's the cool bit. I want to print out every item in my list. Now imagine I've got 5,000 items. It's going to take me ages to go through.
Can you just say output array?
You can output the array, but what if I wanted to look at each individual item and look for something, like test it for something? Yeah? So I might want to go through each individual item and check whether a certain name has been found. Watch what you can do. I can do iteration on it, and I can go for. Alright, so we can do a for loop. I is equal to 0. Okay, so I can do for I is equal to 0. 2, what number are we going to finish at? Yep.
2.
2. Look, 0 to 2. So for I is 0 to 2, output names I. End 4. What have I done there? Yep.
And outputs all the names.
Yes, but how have I done it? What can you notice the key thing that I've referenced?
You've done from names from 0 to 2.
Yes, but look what I've done inside. I'll just get a different colour pen. I've used this value here because I allocated 0, but every time we loop it's going to go 0 to 1 to 2. Alright? Imagine that went from 0 to 5. Okay? I could do I is 0 to 5, and what that would do is I would go to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and then finish at 5. So that's your start point and your finish point basically. Now there's something else you can do that's really cool. You can actually look at the length of the lists. This is why it's good to use, because you can use this type of loop and look at the length. Watch this one. I'm going to go for, let me use the blue pen for this one. And move up. For I is 0 to len names output names I and 4. I'm going to have a problem here, and you might not know what it is yet, but I'm going to explain it while some of you are writing down. Whereas arrays start counting from 0, arrays count from 0, len counts from 1. 2 rules to stand by and remember. Len starts counting from 1, arrays start counting from 0. So what am I going to need to do to my program?
You just put len names -1.
Perfect, well done. Yes, because what is len going to be in this program? Pardon?
Would it be Harry?
No, what is the length of this list? Count it.
3.
It's 3, because len starts counting from 1. 1, 2, 3. So if I put 0 to 3, it's going to go out of range if I use it as the index. Yes?
If it goes out of range, is it just doing a syntax error?
You'd get an error on your program, yeah. Okay? So what I'd need to do is by putting the -1, that value is now equal to 2. Okay? 1, 2, 3, -1. So that's my starting point is 0, my finishing point is 2, and that's how that would work. Am I making sense? I hope so. Ask questions, it's fine. Yeah.
I forgot how len works.
Len counts from 1. So if I'm looking at the length of that list,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. There's 3 items in the list.
What
Yeah, but because I'm using an index for I'm using the array, and arrays start counting at 0. If I went 0, 1, 2, 3, it's going to go out of range. It doesn't exist. So, but remember, look, I've said I is equal to 0 at this point. So I've got to go 0, 1, 2. But if I didn't put the -1 there, it would be equal to 3. And the item 3 doesn't exist. Am I making a bit of sense? Yeah? I have got videos on this, so you just watch it back and practice. So that's a single array. They get a bit more complicated when you need to look at 2 items in the array. Alright? So, what we're going to do is I'm going to get you to create this. Now that's a 2D array. It's easy enough going along a single array, but what it will look like is we've got array scores this is a two-dimensional array. We've got two items to think about here. You've got your rows and your columns, alright? These are your rows. Yeah, row 0, 1, 2. These are your columns. I'm just going to put column 0, 1, 2. But watch what it looks like when it's in this. Can you see what I've done there? It is, that's row 1, that's row 0, that's row 1, that's row 2. This is, if I put C0, 1, 2, C0, 1, 2, C0, 1, 2. Can you see how that works? So I've got my array, but I've split up each row. That's what we call a two-dimensional array, and it's literally how tables work on computers without you realizing it in the background. These are on the slides as well. I'm just trying to give you something that you can watch back, all right? Now, I want to get the number 9 from here. Now the number 9 is on row 2, column 1. Watch what I've got to do. I'm going to go output, scores, alright, but what you've got to do is you've got to put your row and your column. So if I want the number 9, what row is it on? Yeah.
Row 2.
Yes, look, 0, 1, 2. What column is it in?
1.
So we've got our row and our column. Row and column. So when you're doing a 2D array, to find an individual item, alright, you're looking at your row and your column. Now here's the cool bit. Remember how I showed you in our previous program, sorry, I'm just going to flip here, how I can do a for loop to go through a row. What do you think I might have to do to get through every item?
Why?
I can use a while, but I can also use another for. Do you think you... Yeah, I just put a for within a for, because what would happen is you'd have two loops, one for the row and one for the column. So watch what I'm going to do. Alright? The first loop I'm going to use is for rows. Alright? So if I go on here, for, I'll write in for row is equal to 0 to, what number are we going up to?
2.
2. So that's using the row now. Now remember, that increases automatically each time. So it's going to start off on row 0. Now what I want is a loop that's going to take me through each of these items as well. So watch, all I do is for column is 0 to, how many columns have I got?
2.
2. What I can do is I can say output scores, and I can put row and column. End 4, end 4. Let me explain what's happening here. It's going to start up here and it's going to go, right, I'm on row 0. But before it increases that for loop, it jumps into this for loop. And it's going to go, right, I'm on column 0 now. So that would output row 0, column 0. Then go to 1, row 0, column 1. Then go to 2, row 0, column 2. That loop has now finished. That's going up to 1. So the next time around we have row 1, column 0, because it's a new loop. Row 1, column 1. Row 1, column 2. Then that's going to 2, row 2, column 0, row 2, column 1, row 2. Does that make sense how that's happened, yeah? So that's one way to get through every single item in your list by doing a for loop. I've done a program using a while loop that I'm going to explain. But I'm going to let you write that down first, alright? Or you can watch it back and write it down. I'm keen to get on to the next part of today's lesson. So, we can pause this and you can watch it back, but does that make sense how we've had a loop within a loop? One loop represents the row that you're on, then you go along each item. Now, it is possible, here's a scenario of where I'm going through X's and zeros and doing a total count. But I've done this using a while loop. Have a look here. I've got my grid of zeros and an X. Alright, so I've got my grid of zeros and an X. Now what I've done here is I've used a while loop. And I've said array game, and I've set up my zeros and X's. I've only got one X in there. What I've done is I've set up a variable to keep count of the zeros, a variable to keep count of the X's, and I've started off by declaring my row as 0 before I go into doing a while loop. And I said, while the row is less than 3, because it's not going to go up to 3 then, it's going to do this while it's less than 3, so 0, 1, 2. If I go to 3, that's not less than 3, so it doesn't work. So that's the first loop, if you like. Then I set column at 0 and getting ready for my next loop, while column is less than 3. Watch what happens here. I'm going to use if statements within inside my loop. So on the first item I go to, if game 0, 0 is equal to 0, alright, so it's checking the cell, checking if it's a 0, then I'm adding 1 to the count of 0. So I'm counting that I've got an O there. If the row and column, because I'm using the row and the column, alright, if the row and column is equal to X, then the count of X goes up by 1. And if, so that's all inside that while loop that increases 3. Now if you remember what I said about while loops and increasing while loops, I said you need to change the condition. Look at my bad spelling there. Column 1, alright? You need to change the position, so I need to make that column go up by 1. If I don't make it go up by 1, it's not going to work. So then that's going to go up again. So that's going to be, so it's going to start at 0, go up by 1, do this again. Go up by 1, do this again, until it gets to 3. Then it jumps out of that loop, but then I need to make the row increase to start the next loop again, similar to a for loop. There is no concern you can do a for loop or a while loop when it comes to going through lists. This is just another way of me showing you how to do it, okay? There's no right or wrong way of using a specific loop to go through your lists. If one is easier, then please use that. And you'll notice down here, when I've jumped out my final loop, I've output the total, and I've used casting again. Because what is count? It's an integer, and I can't join an integer with a string. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop there, give you some time to do some work on the worksheets today.